60 years. That's how long Mickey Hart and Bob Weir made music together. 60 years of living together, playing together, creating sounds that changed the world. And on Sunday night, just one day after Bob Weir passed away at age 78, Mickey Hart posted a tribute on Instagram that has the entire music world in tears. "Bob Weir was a little brother to me for almost 60 years, Hart wrote. "Still cannot believe he's gone. I miss you so much already, dear friend." This isn't just a tribute from one musician to another. This is a brother mourning a brother. This is the end of one of the longest and most important musical partnerships in rock and roll history. And the words Mickey Hart chose, the photos he shared, and the memories he revealed tell us everything about what the Grateful Dead really meant and why their legacy will never die. Background: the bond between Mickey Hart and Bob Weir. To understand the depth of Mickey Hart's grief, you need to understand the relationship these two men had, because it wasn't just about music. It was about family. Mickey Hart was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1943, making him 4 years older than Bob Weir. He grew up in a household filled with music. His mother was a drummer, and young Mickey was exposed to rhythm from an early age. But Hart's path to becoming a professional musician wasn't straightforward. He worked various jobs, including as a sporting goods salesman and a music teacher, before finding his true calling. In September 1967, Mickey Hart's life changed forever. He was invited to sit in with a San Francisco band called the Grateful Dead at a venue called the Straight Theater. The Dead already had one drummer, Bill Kreutzmann, but the band was experimenting with a 2-drummer setup that would eventually become one of their most distinctive characteristics. Hart joined the band that night, and he never really left. Bob Weir, meanwhile, had been with the Grateful Dead since the very beginning. Born in San Francisco in 1947, Weir co-founded the band in 1965 when he was just 17 years old. He was the youngest member, the rhythm guitarist, and the guy who Jerry Garcia once described as creating harmonic progressions that inspired Garcia's own solos. When Mickey Hart joined the Grateful Dead in 1967, he and Bob Weir immediately clicked. Hart wrote in his Instagram tribute that Weir was my first friend in the Grateful Dead. Think about that for a second. The Dead already had several members by the time Hart joined, including Garcia, Phil Lesh, Ron Pigpen McKernan, and Kreutzmann. But it was Weir, the youngest member, who became Hart's closest friend. And it wasn't just a friendship. They lived together. In the late 60s, members of the Grateful Dead often shared living spaces, creating a communal lifestyle that reflected the hippie counterculture of San Francisco. Hart and Weir were roommates, which meant they weren't just bandmates who saw each other at rehearsals and shows. They were together constantly, eating meals together, hanging out together, experiencing life together. That kind of proximity creates a bond that goes beyond normal friendship. It creates brotherhood. And for Mickey Hart, who was 4 years older, Bob Weir became like a little brother. Someone to look out for, someone to make music with, someone who would be there for the next 6 decades. The main story. Mickey Hart's tribute. On Saturday, January 10th, 2026, Bob Weir's family announced that he had passed away at age 78. The statement revealed that Weir had been diagnosed with cancer in July 2025, just weeks before the Grateful Dead's 60th anniversary shows at Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. He beat the cancer, powering through those final performances with the same spirit that defined his entire life. But underlying lung issues caught up with him, and he transitioned peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. The news hit the music world like a tidal wave. Bob Weir wasn't just a member of the Grateful Dead. He was a founding member, a co-writer of some of their most iconic songs, and a performer who had kept their music alive for 3 decades after Jerry Garcia's death in 1995. Tributes poured in from all over. Bob Dylan, who had performed with Weir over the years, paid his respects. John Mayer, who spent a decade playing alongside Weir in Dead & Company, posted an emotional message saying, "Thanks for letting me ride alongside you. It sure was a pleasure." But it was Mickey Hart's tribute, posted on Sunday night, that really captured the depth of the loss. Hart began with words that immediately set the tone. "Bob Weir was a little brother to me for almost 60 years. He was my first friend in the Grateful Dead. We lived together, played together, and made music together that ended up changing the world." Right there, in those opening sentences, you can feel everything. The length of their friendship, the closeness of their relationship, the significance of what they created together. They didn't just make music, they changed the world. Then Hart did something beautiful. He talked about Bob Weir's musical ability in a way that revealed just how deeply he understood and appreciated his friend's talent. Bob had the ability to play unique chords that few others could. Long fingers, that's the difference. That detail about the long fingers is so specific, so observational, so rooted in the intimate knowledge you only get from watching someone play guitar for 60 years. Hart wasn't just praising Weir in general terms. He was pointing to the physical characteristic that made Weir's playing distinctive. But then Hart revealed something even more profound. He shared a piece of insight that Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead's lead guitarist who died in 1995, had once told him. "Jerry once told me that the harmonics Bob created became an inspiration for his own solos." Think about the weight of that statement. Jerry Garcia is widely considered one of the greatest guitarists in rock and roll history. His improvisational solos are legendary. And he told Mickey Hart that Bob Weir's rhythm guitar playing, those unique chords created by those long fingers, inspired his solos. That means the magic of Garcia's playing wasn't happening in isolation. It was a conversation. Weir would play a chord progression, and Garcia would respond with a solo that built on those harmonics. Hart continued, describing what it felt like when the entire band was locked in. "When all of us were entrained, rhythm section, guitars, and voices, it was transcendent." Entrained. That's a specific musical term that means synchronized, locked into the same rhythm, moving as one organism. And when the Grateful Dead achieved that state of entrainment, Hart says it was transcendent. Not good, not great. Transcendent. Moving beyond the ordinary into something spiritual, then Hart brought it all back to what really mattered. What was a lifetime of adventure boils down to something simple. We were family and true to the music through it all. A lifetime of adventure, 60 years of touring, recording, creating, performing, thousands of shows, millions of fans, ups and downs, triumphs and tragedies, the death of Jerry Garcia, the continuation of the music through various incarnations. All of that complexity, all of those experiences, and Hart distills it down to 2 things. Family and music. Hart also shared a carousel of photos showing him and Weir together over the decades. He wrote that the images show the bookends of our lives together. The first photos from the late 60s and early 70s show young men with long hair, full of energy and possibility. The later photos show older men, weathered by time but still making music, still together. And then, Hart ended with the rawest, most honest statement. "Still cannot believe he's gone. I miss you so much already, dear friend." The present tense is what gets you, not "I will miss you," but "I miss you so much already." The grief is immediate. It's overwhelming. It's the kind of thing you say when you're still in shock, when the reality hasn't fully set in yet. How others responded. Mickey Hart wasn't the only one paying tribute to Bob Weir, but his words seemed to resonate the deepest because of the length and intimacy of their relationship. John Mayer, who joined Dead & Company in 2015 and spent a decade playing the Jerry Garcia role alongside Weir, posted his own tribute on Sunday night. "Okay, Bob, I'll do it your way," Mayer wrote. "Thanks for letting me ride alongside you. It sure was a pleasure. If you say it's not the end, then I'll believe you. I'll meet you in the music. Come find me anytime." Mayer's tribute reflected his decade-long journey of diving deep into the Grateful Dead's catalog. When he first joined Dead & Company, some longtime Deadheads were skeptical. Could this pop-rock guitarist really honor Jerry Garcia's legacy? But Mayer studied the music obsessively, learned the improvisational language of the Dead, and earned the respect of fans and bandmates alike. In a 2015 interview with Billboard, Mayer described the Dead's catalog as a library of Congress of great songs. It's a universe of great songs. Working alongside Bob Weir for 10 years gave Mayer a front-row seat to Weir's artistry. He saw how those long fingers created unique chord voicings. He experienced what it was like to lock into that state of entrainment that Mickey Hart described. And in his tribute, Mayer acknowledged that if Weir says the music continues beyond death, then he believes it. Bob Dylan also paid his respects, though his tribute was more private. Dylan and Weir had a long history together, performing at various events and festivals over the decades. They shared a commitment to American roots music, to storytelling through song, and to the idea that music is a living, breathing tradition that gets passed down through generations. Phil Lesh, the Grateful Dead's bassist and another surviving founding member, mourned privately. Lesh had already lost Jerry Garcia in 1995 and had experienced the death of keyboardist Ron Pigpen McKernan in 1973 and keyboardist Keith Godchaux in 1980. Now, with Weir's passing, only Lesh and drummers Mickey Hart and Bill Kreutzmann remain from the core lineup that defined the Grateful Dead's classic era. The outpouring from fans was massive. Deadheads around the world shared their memories of seeing Weir perform, of how his music shaped their lives, of the community and family that the Grateful Dead created. Many pointed to Weir's final performances at Golden Gate Park in August 2025, just weeks after being diagnosed with cancer. The fact that he powered through those shows, giving his fans one last gift, exemplified the spirit that defined his entire career. Analysis. What this tribute reveals. Mickey Hart's tribute to Bob Weir tells us so much about friendship, music, legacy, and what it means to spend 60 years creating art with another human being. First, it shows us that the deepest musical partnerships are built on personal relationships. Hart and Weir weren't just colleagues. They were friends first. They lived together. They experienced life together. The music flowed from that foundation of genuine connection and trust. Second, Hart's tribute reveals how collaborative the creative process really is. The detail about Jerry Garcia being inspired by Weir's chord progressions shows that even the greatest artists don't create in isolation. They respond to each other. They build on each other's ideas. They create something together that none of them could create alone. Third, the concept of entrainment that Hart mentions is crucial to understanding what made the Grateful Dead special. When a band achieves true entrainment, when everyone is locked into the same groove, moving as one organism, something magical happens. Time seems to stop. The music takes over. The individual egos dissolve into collective creation. That's what deadheads were chasing at every show. That's what kept them coming back, night after night, year after year. Fourth, Hart's description of their relationship as family, not just bandmates, explains how the Grateful Dead survived for 3 decades and how their music continued for 3 more decades after Garcia's death. They weren't a business arrangement. They were a family, and families stick together through everything. Fifth, the photos Hart shared, showing the bookends of their lives together, remind us that time passes, people age, but the bond remains. The young men in those early photos became old men, but they were still making music together, still locked in that state of entrainment, still family. And finally, Hart's raw admission that he still cannot believe Weir is gone shows us that even when you know someone is sick, even when you know death is coming, it's still a shock. The mind can't fully process the absence of someone who has been a constant presence for 60 years. Bob Weir's Achievements and Legacy. Bob Weir's accomplishments over his 78 years are staggering, and they deserve to be celebrated. He co-founded the Grateful Dead in 1965 at age 17 and performed with them for 30 years, until Jerry Garcia's death in 1995. During that time, the Dead released 13 studio albums, dozens of live albums, and played thousands of shows all over the world. They pioneered the jam band genre, allowed fans to record and trade tapes, and built one of the most devoted fan bases in music history. Weir co-wrote some of the Dead's most iconic songs, including Truckin', Sugar Magnolia, and Playing in the Band. His rhythm guitar work was the foundation that allowed Jerry Garcia's lead guitar to soar. His unique chord voicings, created by those long fingers Mickey Hart mentioned, gave the Dead's sound its distinctive character. After Garcia's death, Weir didn't retire. He kept the music alive through various bands, including The Other Ones, The Dead, Further, and Dead & Company. When Dead & Company formed in 2015 with John Mayer on lead guitar, it introduced the Grateful Dead's music to a whole new generation. The band's final tour in 2023, culminating with shows at Las Vegas's Sphere and the 60th anniversary concerts at Golden Gate Park in August 2025, showed that the music never stopped. Weir was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Grateful Dead in 1994. He received Kennedy Center honors in December 2024. He influenced countless musicians across multiple genres, from jam bands to country artists to folk singers. But perhaps his greatest achievement was the community he helped create. The Grateful Dead didn't just have fans. They had deadheads, people for whom the music and the live experience became a way of life. That community still exists today, passing down the music and the ethos to younger generations. Mickey Hart's current status and reflection. Mickey Hart, now 81 years old, is one of the last surviving members of the Grateful Dead's classic lineup. He played with the band from 1967 to 1971, then left due to personal issues related to his father's embezzlement from the band. He rejoined in 1974 and stayed until 1995. After Garcia's death, Hart continued making music both as a solo artist and with various Dead-related projects. He's released numerous albums exploring rhythm and percussion from cultures around the world. He's written books about the science and spirituality of rhythm. He's scored films and worked with everyone from Paul McCartney to the Beastie Boys. In 2015, Hart joined Dead & Company alongside Weir, giving the two old friends another decade to make music together. Earlier in 2025, Hart reflected on the 60th anniversary shows at Golden Gate Park, writing on Instagram, "This weekend was 3 days of coming home, and in those final moments of the weekend, it was truly profound. I saw 60,000 people sparking light, in love, entrained big time and coming our way. Different than applause after a song, it sounded more like an "oh." All the peace and love in proximity generated a collective energy that was shared by all. Very rare stuff indeed. That reflection, written months before Weir's death, captures what Hart valued most about the music: the entrainment, the collective energy, the peace and love shared by thousands of people moving as one. And now, with Weir gone, Hart is left with memories,